Apocalyptic, yes, but only within the confines of medical facilities where things are truly quite bad.
People used to say that when America sneezes, the whole world catches a cold. But these days, it's when China looks sick, people begin to worry. It really is unclear what effect the relaxing of China's COVID policy will have on the people in the country, on COVID in the rest of the world, and the global economy. Meanwhile, in China, there are reports of hospitals and morgues filling up beyond capacity. Jonathan Cheng is China bureau chief at the Wall Street Journal, and I asked him if the mood in China right now feels, and here's a word I couldn't pronounce in 2022. Can I pronounce it in 2023? Does the mood in China right now feel almost apocalyptic?
It's interesting because if you were to walk around Beijing right now, as I've been doing the last few days, and as others have been doing, you actually wouldn't notice that things are amiss at all. Because I think as long as you stay out of the emergency rooms of hospitals and you stay out of funeral homes and crematoria, I think you're actually looking at society coming back to life again. People are going to restaurants, and over New Year's Eve, if you tried to get a reservation at a restaurant, as I tried to do, it was actually really difficult. So apocalyptic, yes, but only within the confines of medical facilities where things are truly quite bad.
Does that necessarily mean then that it's the elderly, the vulnerable, who are getting seriously sick and dying in large numbers?
Yeah, I think that's mostly the case. I mean, when you look around the ERs, I don't think I saw anyone who was younger. Almost everyone I saw was more elderly. Obviously, the older you are, the more likely you are to be vulnerable. It is the winter right now, and so seasonally you're going to get a lot more illness. And then vaccination rates also for the elderly here in China has also been far lower than the broader population. So you add all of that up together, and it's not a good picture for the 80 and older age range.
China is, of course, if not the most important economy, one of the most important economies in the world. What does the change of policy on COVID mean for the economy of China and then for the global economy, in your view, Jonathan? I suppose, is it sort of short-term bumpiness? Is that what you're looking at?
I think that's the optimistic case. We got numbers for December, the first set of economic data on Saturday, and the numbers were very bad. They were far worse than even many economists who, of course, are factoring in all of the policy changes and the number of cases in the country, but it surprised them on the downside and actually was the worst since February 2020. This was both for manufacturing and for the services industry. So whether you're talking about factories, whether you're talking about restaurants and cafes and travel and other services, things were pretty bad in December. Now, of course, that's a backward-looking data point. So the policy shifted considerably on December the 7th. So you're getting a reading of a month where things were sort of in motion and where you really had the first big waves of infections. I think the hope is that coming into this new year here, that you get these waves of infections over with. As anyone who has had Omicron anywhere in the world can probably tell you, if you're younger and healthier, you're likely to have a few pretty bad days, but once you're done with that, you can get back to living again. And I think that's what we're starting to see here. The other little wrinkle here is that we have the Lunar New Year coming up in about 3 weeks, and that's a time of year when everything shuts down in China every year. And so I think there is an optimistic case here if you're a business owner, whether, again, you're in manufacturing or whether you run some sort of a service sector business, that yes, things are going to be pretty bad between now and the end of January, but maybe come February, you're done with the holiday. Most people have gotten sick. The weather's getting a little bit better. Perhaps that's when things get much better for China.
But I guess the issue, I suppose, because the danger China have is they've had the worst of both worlds with this policy. They were closed for a long period of time. They've not been truly vaccinated. Are they going to get the benefit of a pent-up demand spend? Because presumably life has gone on relatively normally in large parts of China where there hasn't been infection because of the zero COVID policy. So is there any, I suppose, extra in the system that there was in Western countries, for example?
Yeah, there may not be. I mean, the one thing that nobody has really been able to do in China is travel internationally. And so that may not benefit China's domestic economy that much if you have all sorts of people in the wealthier stratum all traveling to Thailand or to London or to Paris or to the US, but it will benefit the rest of the world in that respect. Now, it depends on just how much pent-up demand there is. It depends on availability of flights. It depends on even getting passports, which is a bit of a process in China. So it won't happen all at once, and it is hard to gauge. It's also hard to gauge how much long-term damage has been done to the economy just from having it prolonged like this for 3 years. I mean, basically any industry that was externally facing, if you were dealing with needing to come and go or to have tourists come in and out, many of those businesses, I think many of them just don't exist anymore. They couldn't have survived the 3 years. So you have this sort of scarring, and how much that scarring leaves, even if you weren't reliant on that, if you drained your savings as a company and you don't have the money to invest for growth again, or if you don't have these sorts of resources, then what sort of long-term damage does it do? I think these are all questions that we haven't quite gotten an answer to yet.
And the questions we'll probably find the answers to over the course of 2023. That was Jonathan Cheng, the China bureau chief at the Wall Street Journal, saying it's not that apocalyptic in China. Is that better?
I just feel like you're showing off now. And you know what they say, pride comes before a fall.
I think my falls come before my pride there, because it didn't sound perfect, did it? I got seismic. I've learnt seismic painfully.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Painfully. Not as painful as it was for us.
That's
6:13. Let's